The 12-team playoff is set, and with 12 teams comes 12 quarterbacks who right now have all eyes on them, not only for what they're about to do for their teams in the playoff, but as we're looking to next season, it's fair to start asking the questions about where they might be. In the era of transfer portal, NIL, coaching changes, even in the playoffs, looking at teams like Ole Miss, JMU, and Tulane, we have these questions come up where we're already looking so far ahead. Just a couple days ago, we already had Marcel Reed saying,
I'm coming back. I'll be back.
So that kind of inspired us to look at these quarterbacks, the 12 quarterbacks leading the playoffs, and figure out where they might be next year. If they're going to the NFL, let's take a look at what team might draft them, look at an NFL comparison, maybe where they have room to grow as they enter the league. If they're coming back, let's see if they're going to be back at their team, or is there a potential for a new suitor to come in and try to snatch them out of the transfer portal or guide them into that portal. We've seen that happen in the past few years. So we'll be looking at these 12 quarterbacks. We're going to go based on the seeding and break down each individual one. As the video goes on, if you like content like this, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. We put a lot of time and effort into videos like this. And by hitting like, subscribing to the channel, it helps us continue to make videos like this and helps it make its way to you. We appreciate you watching, and let's get into it. Let's start with Fernando Mendoza. Right now, leading Indiana to a #1 seed, an undefeated season. He's really the highest rated NFL prospect at the position right now. You know, he's the potential Heisman winner, should probably be the first quarterback off the board. Teams right now kind of evaluating him, Dante Moore, or Ty Simpson as that first pick. You know, he's a taller quarterback, some room to build out his frame, but he's going to be going to a team who probably needs a day one starter. You know, if New York or Tennessee gets the first pick, they would probably opt for a Reuben Bain, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, just because they're already pretty set on their quarterback situation. But he'll be the first one off the board. I'm going to say probably in the top 3 to 5. Doing an NFL comparison here, I'm looking at more of a Jared Goff type prototype quarterback here. Day one ready from just kind of a gamer ability, being able to plug into a team and be able to bring his talents there. You know, where maybe some room for improvement is, it's probably more of an unknown, is that he's not really throwing deep often. 20 plus air yards, only about 13% of his dropbacks, 92nd among starting quarterbacks in college. He's excelled when throwing at that depth. It'll be interesting to see how that portion of his game develops at the NFL level. When you're looking at games that he's thrown deeper, it's kind of particularly games that they've played close. His average depth of target was deeper in games like Penn State, Ohio State, and Iowa. Take nothing away from what he's done this season. He's taken his team to that next level, looking to compete in the playoffs. Like I said, Heisman candidate. He will be in the draft and he will be a top 5 pick, and an NFL team will be happy to have him. Next up, we have the #2 seed, Julian Sayin. This is a bit different from Mendoza, a sophomore, freshman, however you want to classify him. I'd say we'll give him a 99.9% chance to be back at Ohio State next season. There's great chemistry between him and Jeremiah Smith, who also will have to be coming back, and this team will do anything to retain these two guys because of the connection that's developed and what they've been able to do with Ohio State this year. He fits really, really well into that program and has been able to operate well with the weapons that they have there at Ohio State. You know, you look behind him and there's Lincoln Kienholz, there's Tavian St. Clair. St. Clair is a 5-star freshman local to Ohio, was always locked in on Ohio State in his recruitment. Video is not really about him, but we'll see how the quarterback room shakes up behind him. They only have one quarterback signed for 2026, 3-star pocket passer, Luke Fahey. I think the quarterback room stays solid. Maybe Kienholz being the potential transfer here. You know, looking at Julian Sayin, I think he returns to build a resume worthy of a top pick in the 2027 draft. You know, he can't go this year. I think since Sayin does have to returning to Ohio State is a great option for him because of the weapons, and it gives him the opportunity to build another resume-worthy season that will boost him to a higher pick in the 2027 draft. You know, he'll be building some of those NFL comparisons where right now he's operating so much in that system. We're looking and kind of saying, okay, there's a little J.J. McCarthy-esque play style here to how he operates within this offense. They've been very dominant, but given that his year in college and that he will be back, I don't expect him going anywhere but Ohio State. Third, Gunnar Stockton. This is an interesting one because looking at what Georgia has accomplished this year and the way that he's been able to operate for this team, some might expect to see him higher on draft boards. He's really not climbed to that higher pedigree of quarterbacks here. And a lot of that's kind of hinging on the fact of not exactly knowing who he is or who he could potentially be with the lack of starter experience, this being his first year starting at Georgia, having to step into some games in the playoff last year. Some see him a little bit undersized for the type of ball that he likes to play, but another year will help him develop the deep ball, improve on his speed with decision making, and climb the boards there. I wouldn't be too worried about competing with next year's draft class because of the fact that Georgia's not going anywhere. This is a Georgia team that they're in the playoffs with a bye this year. They'll be in the playoffs next year more than likely. They're one of those teams that, as much as people think there might be a drop off from year to year, it's not happening. So he'll be in preseason Heisman conversations next year, with that team expected to compete for a national title. I think he'll be back at Georgia ready to solidify himself as a first rounder to early second. Whereas if he was to go now, you'd kind of see him as an early day 3 guy, just given, some of those question marks around the experience level. Next, we have Baron Morton. Historic season for Texas Tech. I mean, he's been playing just well enough to keep his name in certain conversations, but not doing himself enough favors to move really into any draft boards right now. No remaining eligibility. Been in college for now 5 years. He will look to make an NFL roster, but given some of the day 3 guys out there, I'm not sure he would be the one to take a chance on. You have those hovering on the draftable day 3 guys and free agent. You're looking at Sawyer Robertson, you're looking at Taylon Green, Joey Aguilar, Kevin Jennings, that have more potential upside than Morton. Shown some injury proneness. I do think that he could bring something from his tenure in college to be a late, signee on a team as an undrafted free agent, operate on a practice squad and try to alleviate any concerns maybe around some of his pocket presence, decision-making, overall capacity, and capability to play at the next level. But ultimately, this Texas Tech team really driven by what they've been able to do on defense and giving teams a hard time to score and putting the offensive position to have a lot of reps at it. He's been a critical part of that. I just don't see right now an NFL team taking that chance aside from an undrafted free agent. First out of the teams with buys, we have Dante Moore. This is one who it's been quietly talked about, but a little bit understated on what he's bringing to the table when it comes to the NFL conversation. He has the 3rd highest completion percentage in college football this year, leading Oregon to an 11-1 season, a home playoff game. He'll enter the draft as one of the top 3 options at the quarterback position. Like I mentioned earlier, you're looking at Fernando Mendoza, you're looking at Ty Simpson, and you're looking at Dante Moore. He could potentially increase his chance from being 2nd or 3rd on that list to the top 1 with how he performs in the playoffs and pre-draft events. I'd say from the pure delivery, he's the most NFL ready. Quick release, great ability to extend plays, find his guy. Depending on how the teams line up that need a quarterback, of those that end up near the top of the list are kind of, Raiders, Jets, Saints. Cleveland doesn't seem necessarily thrilled with their quarterback draft last year. We've seen Shador kind of step into the starting role for the remainder of the season. They could be willing to add to that room with a pick here, but I see those Raiders, Jets, Saints being the teams that really are vying for a guy like Dante Moore. Looking at an NFL comparison, I have Jordan Love as a good comparison for his game. I could see him going to a team and starting, but we'd want to see the Oregon version of him, not UCLA. If he doesn't have that premium talent that Oregon offered around him, we don't want to see that regression to 2023, 11 touchdowns, 14 turnovers. He's really developed since being at Oregon, having that year to sit last season, now stepping in this year, being a guy looking to lead his team to a deep playoff run with that first round game being against JMU. Trinidad Chambliss, Ole Miss quarterback, one of the better stories of this season, the Ferris State transfer, is now here at Ole Miss leading his team with a different head coach. Now Pete Golding stepping into the head coaching role with Lane Kiffin's departure. Chambliss has filed for a waiver to get another year of eligibility after playing, at Ferris State. So this one hinges more on that than anything. To say one way or another, whether he'll be in the NFL or back kind of hinges on what happens with that waiver. He's been pretty forward in saying that if that is declined, he'll opt for the draft, but if it's approved, he'll return. Question is whether that will be Ole Miss or elsewhere. It's no secret that he had a great relationship with Lane Kiffin, a lot of trust placed in him as the season went on. And if we look at LSU's quarterback options next year, Michael Van Buren would be the supposed starter, as you look at the depth chart right now, but Lane's arrival would draw the names of some high-profile quarterbacks. Be looking at Sam Levitt and the likes of that. If the waiver is granted, I could see Chambliss returning to Ole Miss. And then we'd have to see what happens with the quarterback room with Austin Simmons, AJ Maddox. Suitors may come calling for Chambliss. He's, second team all SEC. The Ole Miss higher-ups, I would imagine, would like to do anything that they can to keep a level of consistency across the program, especially offensively. By promoting Pete Golding, they're looking to keep a little bit of that continuity within the team as opposed to searching elsewhere. And I think bringing your quarterback back, who's been able to be such a critical story to the season so far, is a great play. I think that Ole Miss would want him back. Now, if the waiver does not get granted and he has to go to the NFL, I would expect to see him go late sixth to a team with interest in developing a dual threat quarterback. Similar profile to what the Giants have done with the predecessor at Ole Miss with Jackson Dart. Could see something like that here, a team who wants to develop a dual threat quarterback, kind of like the Seahawks, taking Jalen Milroe last year. Chambliss has a lot to offer. So if he does come back, I see him staying at Ole Miss. If he does go to the NFL, I'm looking at, a late 6th round grade here. Marcel Reed, Texas A&M quarterback, kind of the reason we decided to do this video based on his announcement on December 8th that he would be back at A&M, talking to RG3 on his show, making that announcement. A bit expected, given the talent that he's been developing and where he could find himself placed in 2027 in the draft if this trajectory continues. Looking at last season, taking the starting job from Connor Wegman, this year really developing as a passer, keeping the running in his back pocket as that weapon, using his mobility more to move around in the pocket than to actually get out and, peel out for what he was doing in his previous season. He's developing a lot of NFL talent. Now you'd be competing in the next draft with the Lagways, the Sayin, the Raiolas, the Arches. Who's to say that Reed couldn't compete and exceed expectations and jump maybe some of those as the draft gets closer? He was a bit undersized at the position for the NFL, but Texas A&M has one of the best strength and conditioning programs that will be a good part in his development to continue to get him ready, especially for the style of game that he plays, being a little bit more mobile. Great field surveyor. The extra time will help him develop some consistent accuracy from the pocket. Then they'll hopefully make another playoff run. They've developed a really good program there under Elko. I don't imagine that he was blowing smoke with that comment about coming back. I don't imagine him going anywhere else in college, especially with the investment that Texas A&M has shown they're willing to make in playmakers and probably will continue to do in the portal, bringing in guys like Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion, who have been such an important part of the Texas A&M offensive story this season. So I got Marcel Reed back and preparing for the 2027 draft with another run at Texas A&M next year. Last of the teams playing a home game, we have John Mateer at Oklahoma, the Washington State transfer. Maybe a bit disappointing offensively for Oklahoma this season, but their defense has been able to keep them in games. He's had his ups and downs as far as his quarterback evaluation has gone, as he will likely enter the draft. Prior to the hand injury, he had projections for first round to quarterback needy teams like Pittsburgh. Since then, there have been a few issues highlighted in his draft reports that maybe have pulled the reins back a little bit on that. Positively, he operates really well in moments of disruption. When there's chaos, he's good to evade that in the pocket, good to make plays, take off with his legs as he needed. We really, really saw that at Washington State last year. His ability to as a runner, that's a big plus. But there have been some accuracy issues in the short distance pass, even throws sometimes behind, sometimes in the dirt. It's led to turnovers, led to stalled drives. And NFL offenses that operate really, really critically in some of those shorter routes, being anticipatory, that won't really fly. There's less room for the heroics to save drives. That's kind of brought his grade down a little bit. I have his comparison right now, and Oklahoma fans can let me know how you feel about this one. I feel as if there's some Baker Mayfield-esque gameplay to him, and that's not just coming from me. There's been an NFL, SEC scouts and making comments like that, especially early on in the season, that he reminded them a little bit there, especially from the size. Baker, much better arm. Mateer having more potential as a runner. But I think that there's that playmaker, gamer style quarterback that comes in here. And I looking, at where he could end up in the NFL draft, I think he fits squarely as an early to mid third round quarterback. I'd like to see Oklahoma's offense step up a bit in the playoffs to build his portfolio. First game being at home against Alabama. There's plenty of tape to look at from his time at Washington State. But again, looking to see how he develops through the playoffs, through pre-draft events, to build confidence in what he can bring. A lot of leadership qualities with him as well. If you've kept up with, him in the transition and how he spoke about his team and spoke about the difficulties he's had with the hand injury and the likes there. So was high on John Mateer coming into the season. I do think that he'll bring a lot to an NFL team and would benefit from not having to be a day one starter. Now we're looking at the teams who are going to be traveling on the road. We got 4 quarterbacks left. First one here, Ty Simpson. No one has done more to raise more question marks around their team's fan base than Ty Simpson, but the NFL scouting reports, potential landing spots for Ty have not faltered much from that. He was poised at times in the season, especially early on, as a number 1 pick in the draft. He now sits pretty much as a top 10 first round quarterback, worst case being a late first round. His leadership quality, being a pro style quarterback, to me, he draws comparisons to Kirk Cousins right now. Looking at quarterbacks not in the NFL anymore, I think there's some of that cerebral quarterback play reminiscent of an Andrew Luck. NFL teams will make note of his pre-snap adjustments and ability to read defenses really, really well. We've seen that all season, that he gets to the line, reads the defense, and has been checking out of plays. That's an experience that some quarterbacks don't bring to the NFL that will make him more of that day one starter. His issues arise a little bit with evading pressure in the pocket. He's more step up, step back, less of a lateral player. We saw that especially in the Georgia game in the SEC championship. He's also a little bit, a hair too late on anticipatory throws, hitting his receivers in stride prior to the break. Getting in sync with receivers to hit that out of the break will add a tremendous layer to his game and help with those instances of sitting in the pocket too long. Best case, I see him being QB2, QB3 off the board, kind of competing with Dante Moore there, to a team like I mentioned before, the Saints, the Jets. Worst case, it's not even a bad case, is he falls to later in the first round to a team like Pittsburgh. It wouldn't be a bad place for him to land, even understanding the looming future of Mike Tomlin at the program. That's kind of where I see Ty Simpson. I think he brings a lot to the position, being that pro style quarterback, more of a, an NFL caliber guy that has developed more as a pocket passer. Some of that mobility that fans are maybe expecting to see coming into the season, not really shining, but that's okay because he brings a lot to the game from a mind student of the game standpoint. Miami quarterback, former Georgia Bulldog Carson Beck. He'll be in the NFL draft this year. Has experience at Georgia. Now at Miami, there's significant tape for teams to look at to evaluate Carson Beck. He's extremely proficient at getting in rhythm, getting the ball out before the receiver breaks, pocket confidence. They're all traits that NFL teams would be excited for. The room for opportunity for him is how he reads some of these disguise coverages, particularly since he does look to make those anticipatory throws. We've seen it in some of his turnover-heavy games at Georgia, some of the ones in the middle stretch of the season there for Miami, where he wasn't reading the defense right, and he was looking to hit his receiver out of the break, and those balls get jumped. So we've seen that with him. That's just something that maybe could develop as he gets to the NFL. He's a bit streaky. Like I mentioned, getting into rhythm is great when he's playing well, but he can also get into ruts of poor play when it swings the opposite side. The experience is a big piece for him. He has a great accuracy on the deep ball, gets the ball out quick. I have him as a late third rounder to a team with a solid quarterback situation and not much immediate starting need. Looking at a team like the Rams, taking a former Georgia quarterback in Stetson Bennett a few years ago, I could see him on the Rams developing and not necessarily needing to be a day one starter. Final 2 quarterbacks here. We're looking at the 2 G5 schools. We have Jake Retzlaff, essentially forced out of BYU, a late transfer to Tulane, has led his team to the playoffs behind a conference title. He spent 2 seasons, at Golden City, Riverside. So while recent NCAA rulings would maybe give him some extra eligibility, I believe that he declares for the draft. Now, positionally, where in that draft would he fall? He's a great red zone quarterback. He's good at scoring. They're 38th nationally in red zone scoring percentage at Tulane. He's excelled as a runner when needed. He has a rushing touchdown in all but 2 of their games. That's East Carolina and Ole Miss being the 2 that he did not have a rushing touchdown. He's held back a bit by the power on the deep ball, some decision-making issues and accuracy downfield. I think he would be more of a project backup in the NFL that comes with ample experience. A bit older, but I think that it's still a guy that has those traits that you could develop in. I don't see him getting drafted. I see him as an undrafted free agent. Like I mentioned before, you're kind of ending that draft fringe. You got guys like Joey Aguilar. I didn't mention him earlier, but you got Miller Moss, Aiden Childs out of Michigan State. The likes of those guys, I think, would find a home, in my mind, before Jake Retzlaff. I do think he puts his name out there, ends up on a team, and looks to develop through training camp into being a guy that they can trust in backup situations. Finally, we have Alonzo Barnett III, JMU quarterback. And this is a really interesting one. We've seen quarterbacks build draft stock at G5, FCS schools. Really, the best way to improve that stock and tape and alleviate any concerns is to play tougher competition. Being in the playoffs here, given the schedule that JMU's played this year, will be a great opportunity to see how he plays against some quality competition. His first game being in Eugene, Oregon. It's going to be a great test. Bob Chesney now going to UCLA to coach after the season. Could he take his quarterback with him? Traditionally a defensive-minded coach, but it could shake up the UCLA quarterback room and roster tremendously should Barnett want to make a trip out there. We know both Iamaleava brothers are there. With the coach was now fired. Deshaun Foster, I think, 3 games into the season, so changes are happening. A no BS coach like Bob Chesney could see some of that situation as distracting, and would it be surprising to see those two transfer somewhere else and make room for a quarterback like Alonzo to come in? Not about them, about him. I believe that he transfers out of JMU, comes back. Maybe it's lazy to call it UCLA to follow Chesney, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear his name linked to a Wake Forest or a UNC, a North Carolina native who showed interest in those schools, not highly enough touted to get offered there out of high school. But I could see now with the resume that he's developed over the past few years at JMU that he could find himself at a Wake Forest for sure. This is a breakdown of the 12 quarterbacks in the playoffs. We've taken a look at all of them, where they might fall. Let us know if you think that we've got some of these wrong. Let us know what's right, where you see some of these quarterbacks ending up. Is Las Vegas a good fit for Fernando Mendoza? Would Ty Simpson maybe drop to a later first-round pick? Do you see Trinidad Chambliss coming back to Ole Miss or maybe transferring, joining Lane at LSU? Let us know what you think. As always, hit the like and subscribe button. Love making content like this. This is the new SEC podcast, and until next time.